Throughout the competitive Smash Bros. Scene, Kirby has been an all-around character who excels in combos with his ability to stay in the air for a while. His unique copy abilities keep him versatile in all matchups, but he continuously suffers from a short range and slow airspeed, a significant problem for an aerial-based character. Throughout the series, Kirby's quality in each game depends on how his speed and range can be increased through either different engines or other aspects of the game. Kirby mains have used their skills to help Kirby climb in the tier list and stay competitively viable. In this video, Kirby's time throughout the Smash Bros. Series will be looked at. Today, we'll be analyzing Kirby's moves, results, strengths, and weaknesses as we dive deep into Kirby as a Smash Bros. Fighter. Before this video begins, please take a look and see if you are subscribed. Please do so if you are not. I'm trying out a few new styles of video alongside my typical videos in the coming months and would love for you guys to enjoy them. Furthermore, I have some huge plans for this summer, so stay tuned for that. Thank you. Kirby was designed to be one of the easiest characters to play in the entire series of Smash, but that does not mean he's a bad character. Rather, a simple and forgiving one. His combos follow suit in that they are extremely easy to master, but can also be long-lasting, and do tons of damage and put Kirby in a great stage position. He has many combos that involve him hitting the same move in a row, which allow the Kirby players at the top level to focus on other aspects of the game rather than his strong advantage state. This strength also comes in the sense that almost all of Kirby's attacks are quick, which give him easy combo starters when he is in range. Kirby also shows his strength in his jumps and aerial coverage. While there are certainly weaknesses for Kirby in the air, the best part of his game plan, specifically his edge guarding, comes from his many mid-air jumps. This allows Kirby both to go far off stage to catch recoveries, or sit under the ledge to trap opponents and punish them even before they get to the ledge. Finally, and heavily underlooked in Kirby's moveset, comes from his neutral B, where he can take the opponent's neutral B as his own. Thus, his ability gives him tons of versatility, and therefore forces the opposing player to think on their feet, as Kirby's moves can change a lot throughout a match. Despite his mid-air jumps being a strength for Kirby, this comes with a downside, and is one of Kirby's two major weaknesses. One is his airborne mobility. Even though he can stay in the air for an extremely long time, he cannot move around much due to his poor airspeed and bottom 5 air acceleration. This means that Kirby has a tough time getting out of combos and disadvantage, as well as following up, to make combos and aerial reads difficult. Many times, the Kirby player knows the proper punishment, but Kirby can just not get there in time. The other major setback with Kirby throughout the Smash Bros. Series is his short range. Kirby's moves all have a very short range because he is quite short and does not use a weapon in his normals, instead relying on his feet, which do not bode well against swordies, zoners, or other long-ranged archetypes. This means that while his combos are simple to start and extend in theory, his short range makes it difficult to connect these combo starters in the first place, forcing Kirby to work extra hard in neutral to get around these issues. However, throughout the history of Smash, many top players have used Kirby's strengths while reducing his weaknesses, to prove that Kirby can be a true top-tier threat. Kirby started out his time in the Smash Bros. Series extremely strong, as his typical weaknesses were essentially non-existent in Smash 64, and his strength allowed him to exploit some of the other characters in a competitive setting. One of the major problems with the Smash 64 game, most likely since it was the first game in the series, was recoveries. Most of the cast had poor to useless recovery options to the point where Falcon Punch was a superior move to use to get back to the stage. With his jumps, however, Kirby is able to do what he does best and float in the air, which gave him a great edge-guarding tool without even performing a single move. The pressure that he applies forced other characters to have a tough time recovering from the ledge. This is why, in the first Smash 64 tier list, Kirby ranked second in the game, immediately in the top tier, under Pikachu and above Ness. His edge-guarding was great, and not only was this the case, Kirby's consistent worst aspect of his gameplay, his range, was surprisingly amazing in this game too. This is highlighted perfectly by the size of his up-tilt hitbox. Kirby could string about 5 of these in a row to continue combos off of them. But But while his range was great in this game, his speed was not the best, so it caused him to drop a spot in the second tier list, where he was put under Pikachu and Fox in third place, in A tier. However, this quickly changed as some amazing results from Kirby mains brought him back up to his rightful spot once more. Along with this placement, Kirby's Shield Stun and Shield Break setups helped him bump back up. This put him back in second place for the third and final tier lists, where he and Pikachu sit alone in the S tier, proving to be the bosses of Smash 64. As stated in the prior section, Kirby's jump to solidify himself as a better character than Fox was not done through discovering new tech, but by the Kirby mains of the game who rallied together to prove that their character was S tier. The best ranked Kirby player of all time was Fukuro, who was the #1 player in the world at one point, with wins at tournaments such as Snooza 2 and CCS 2017 by only using Kirby. Some other amazing Kirby players are Kikiushi, who won Apex 2013, and Kisk, who used Kirby and his dominance. Currently, the American Hammerheart is considered the best solo Kirby, but there are tons of players using this character in Smash 64 due to the ease of play, amazing skill, and high ceiling. After Kirby's appearance in Smash 64, he did get a slight redesign to fit his character better, now that the team had more understanding of how the game mechanics worked, and could now incorporate a little more character into each of the fighters. This was definitely done with Kirby, as a total of 6 pre-existing moves were changed during the transition. The best and most needed of these changes were to his 2 aerials. In the first game, Kirby's neutral air was the same as most of the cast, which was the neutral leg kick in front of him. But with his stubby legs, it did not really fit his character, so his old up air was moved to his neutral air as Kirby spun around in place, which made it easier to hit on all sides of him like a neutral air should. His up air, which now was an open slot, became an overhead kick for comboing. His forward air also changed from a frontal drill kick to a triple kick. His dash attack used to be the faceplant into the ground, but was now changed to the spinning fiery ball dash for Kirby. The smallest of all the changes was to his down tilt, which changed from a small kick to a leg sweep. Finally, and last of all, Kirby's forward throw was changed to a forward body slam into the ground from the higher explosion that he used to have. Kirby, like all the other characters in the Switch, received a slew of changes from both the moves department and the global engine changes. As for moves, he gained the addition of a side B, pummel, up and down throw, which just helped Kirby be more versatile, despite these moves being slow and quite useless for Kirby in this game. These general changes, on the other hand, were extremely detrimental to Kirby, as Sakurai allegedly wanted to nerf Kirby from the previous game in order to demonstrate that he was not biased to his own characters. This was done quite a few ways with the engine, as the faster gameplay did not really help Kirby, since he was already pretty slow in both the air and the ground, so while the faster characters had more of an improvement, he did not show that much meaningful change. His KO power was still lacking, and his range was not good, so other characters were able to maneuver around his moves a lot better. In other changes, his new throws were some of the worst throws ever seen in the series, as they could be jumped out of, and could kill Kirby by sending himself off the stage. He really lacked all the quality aspects that he had in the last game that made him so great, and dropped down in the tier list extremely fast. Immediately, players noticed the worst gameplay that Kirby had, and this set him up for failure in the Melee tier list to come. Early Melee players noticed that Kirby lacked KO power, speed, and range in comparison to the rest of the cast. In a game that is all about unique and interesting movement, Kirby basically had nothing, and was competitively useless. This led him to his first ranking of 22nd on the first tier list out of the total 26 characters, right behind Roy and above Mr. Game & Watch. Kirby's lack of players did not help him get out of the competitive obscurity he was facing, as he began to plummet even more, and the dedicated mains could not make this character work, as he was so bad compared to the rest of the cast, even the mid-tiers. He dropped to 23rd and stayed there until the 4th list, where he was ranked in the low tier, along Donkey Kong and Mr. Game & Watch. There was always a discussion in where to rank Kirby on the tier lists, since as hard as it was to create a tier list for the top tier characters, it was much harder to do so with the bottom tier characters, as there was much less knowledge about them and much fewer matchups to go off of. This meant that for the next 6 tier lists, Kirby, Pichu, Zelda, Ness, Bowser, and Mewtwo were constantly changing their positions in the bottom, until they ended up at a place where Kirby was semi-solidified in the 26th and bottom position in the 11th tier list in July of 2013. This was kept up in the next tier list where he and Bowser ranked in the absolute worst G tier, but Kirby crawled his way back out of the bottom spot in 2021 where he ranked 25th, just above Bowser, with the two alone in F tier. Kirby has very little to no melee player representation, since playing him basically means you are going to lose, even to players way below your skill level. This led Kirby to only have 2 real mains that put in the work with his character, but never even made it that far solely due to the character's weaknesses. The first of these was Crazy Kirby Kid, who had some good wins in the early game, but the real best Kirby player is Triple R, who has tournament placings such as a 25th at Smash and Splash 2, a 7th at Kings of the North 5, and was ranked 3rd in the Minnesota Power Rankings with Kirby. While it was not much due to the horrible character they were playing, Kirby mains tried their best to bring him into the game and meta, and completed their job by showing off that Kirby was not the worst character in Melee. After putting his character creation into the ground in terms of competitive viability, Sakurai and the Smash Bros. Brawl developers decided to help out the Pink Puffball a bit and buff him in the next game. This meant making a few changes to his moveset, some alterations to old moves, and some completely new moves. Some small but necessary changes here were to Kirby's throws, which could now not be jumped out of, and would not send Kirby to the blast zone if done near the ledge. Also, Kirby's aerial side B was fixed from the weak 2% hammer swing around Kirby to a double sideways smash when in the air. The only move that was entirely changed, however, was his dash attack, which was now a breakdancing spinning kick from his yo-yo copy ability in his home series. While these moves did not do much on their own, when combined with the other buffs, they helped Kirby in the long term. Some other changes were the stronger KO potential of his smash attacks and less lag on his aerials and grounded moves. These changes made Kirby a little bit more like his Smash 64 character, as opposed to its faulty melee counterpart. The game slowing down helped Kirby's archetype a lot, since his stubby range was at much less of a disadvantage in the slower game due to the ability to try and outmaneuver his opponents, and set up for solid hits without giving the opponents time or the ability to dodge. Another aspect that helped Kirby that was generally viewed universally negative was the lack of real hit stun. This game gave other characters a lack of combos, but it gave Kirby the ability to stand on even ground with some of the other characters, as his combos were tight enough to get through some of these problems. As a character who spent most of his time in the air, as his ground speed was still slow, tripping actually kind of helped Kirby over the other characters, along with moves such as down tilt that could help set up for potential trips. His recovery also improved in that he could stay out in the air longer, and the height of his up B was changed to travel more distance horizontally and vertically, which helped him get back to the stage and live longer, a problem that he should have never had with his multiple mid-air jumps. Kirby's change in viability from the swap to Brawl allowed for people who played Kirby back in the first game to come back to the character and give him another shot, as while he was not turning top tier in this game, he was certainly nowhere near the bottom. In a shocking turn of events from the previous game, in the first tier list, Kirby ranked 14th out of the total 37 characters in the high tier alongside the underdeveloped Ice Climbers and Pit, and he jumped to the 13th spot in the list right after, just a few months later. Kirby's new design and now floatier nature helped him out in Brawl and allowed players to get some pretty good results, which was helped by Kirby's decent matchup spread. Kirby did not have any extremely losing matchups in the -3 department, and only had a few -2s in the top of the top tiers. Against other characters, such as Fox, he actually had a winning matchup, and an even one against other top or high-tiered characters such as King Dedede, Falco, and Pikachu. However, while people understood Kirby's gameplay and thought he was better, there was still a huge gap between him and the best of the best character in Meta Knight. And as better characters were discovered who could keep pace with Meta Knight, they jumped ahead of the tier list, overtaking Kirby and forcing him to fall down to 16th place in the 4th tier list, created in February of 2010. From then on, Kirby began a slow decline, again not due to his own character, but due to the improvements of others that forced him down. He ended the last list in 20th place at the bottom of D tier, right above DK and below Peach. The story of Kirby's game in Brawl was a crazy comeback story that shows that despite characters being horrible in one game, the new engine can change everything. Even though Kirby was good in Brawl, there were still much better options to play than him, which led to a small player base for this character. Two players who were never the complete number one, but were close, were YBM and Fallen, who both mained the character and used him to get places in the 20s and 30s at majors such as Pound 4 and Genesis 2. But the real Kirby main of Brawl was a melee player, Chudat, who played Kirby and had major wins such as a first at CEO 2010, Glitch 2, and a 13th at Pound 5. Despite his interesting gameplay. Chudat pushed the character of Kirby beyond what anyone had ever thought possible, and showed the importance of a dedicated group of mains for a character. There's actually only one real moveset change for Kirby from Smash Brawl to Smash 4, and that was to his side B, his hammer flip. The basics of this move stayed the same, but the move now had the ability to be charged, like in Kirby's home series. Despite this move being slow in the first place, and now even slower with the chargeable version, Kirby did find a slight use for it in shield break punishes, as it now had become the ideal move to punish shield breaks with. Other than that, Kirby did get some changes to his copy abilities, as they are now identical to the version of the characters who he copied. Before Smash 4, Kirby had different frame data and attack power for some of the moves he stole from other characters, but in this game, that was removed and his copy abilities were standardized in the sense that frame data and power of the move had on the original character were now carried over to Kirby. Kirby did have some changes that stemmed from the engine, as well as a few that were not directly moveset related. The first of these was that Kirby no longer had the range he had in pre-existing games. Despite Kirby's small feet being his main source of attacks, his range was further reduced as he got a new model for this game that altered the size of his feet. This weakened him even further for one of his weaknesses, and did not allow him to do well against the game's sword characters, who were prominent. The devs really weighed into Kirby, as they also nerfed him in one of his other major weaknesses, his airspeed. Just like in the last game, even though he had many jumps, Kirby was still extremely slow in the air, and this actually got worse in Smash 4, which made it even harder to connect aerial combos and recover, since his recovery could be telegraphed and blocked with an edge guard. He did get a little more KO power to some of his throws, which made them a threat at super high percents, but nothing too scary or necessary to avoid in a normal match. One final buff that he got was to his ground speed, which was a nice change as it juxtaposed his slower airspeed that weighed him down in the tier list so much. A combination of Kirby's poor status in Brawl and the obvious nerfs that the developers and engine actively and passively gave to him did not bring him success in the tier list in the start of Smash 4's life cycle. The addition of many zoning characters, as well as the commonality of sword characters, did not allow Kirby to play his game due to the slow speed and short range he had. However, he did have some combos due to his quick frame data, and this allowed for his spot on the first tier list to not be terrible, even if it was pretty unviable. His ranking on the first Smash 4 tier list in February of 2016 was the 33rd spot out of the total 56 characters, due to Corrin's and Bayonetta's lack of release, as he was ranked in the top of F tier under Roy and above Bowser Jr. At this point, the community thought that he had the potential to pick up some wins and high placements with a top tier character specialist. However, that player never came, and it harmed Kirby because of it. In the second tier list, the worst thing that could have happened to Kirby happened, which is the release of the final two DLC characters. Corrin's sword and long-range attacks such as his pin prevented Kirby from getting in on him. And on the other hand, Bayonetta's tricky movement did not allow Kirby to catch up to her and force him to commit hard to a punish, for which he would get punished to death himself. This caused him to drop quickly in the rankings and end up at 41st in the second tier list, and quickly drop to 50th in the final tier list at the end of 2017. This meant that Kirby was just not viable in the meta at the time, and no one had truly helped him out, resulting in him ending up in the F tier below Dr. Mario. Kirby's low placement, however, does not mean that he lacked results, as there were some great Kirby players in the game that made some shocking upsets. 3 top Kirby players from around the world were Jeshuisak, France's best and Europe's best Kirby, Uto, Japan's best Kirby, and Mike Kirby, an American who was the best Kirby player in the world. These 3 did amount to some solid placements, such as a 13th at Talent.io from the Frenchman, a 25th at Super Sumabado from Udo, and a 13th at Glitch from the American. In addition to these 3, one of the most famous sets in Smash 4 was Komoda's win over Ally with Kirby, and was one of the defining factors that helped put Kirby on the map in this time. He also had a 33rd at Frostbite 2017 to go along with it. Overall, despite Kirby not being a good character in Smash 4 at all, these few players pitched in and helped the pink puffball out to give him some good placements in a game in which he really struggled. Just like with the prior transition, the alteration of Kirby's moves from Smash 4 to Ultimate was quite minor, and only resulted in one total and complete move change. This was to Kirby's dash attack. which reverted from the breakdance spinning move back to its melee iteration, which had Kirby get into a flaming ball and dash forwards, hitting anyone in his path. This was a needed and welcome change for Kirby, since it gave him another killing move that was also a burst option, which helped with his lack of range. However, since there was only one move slot change, there was nothing major, and Kirby still had some of the same problems from before. The only other change was the addition of a blue screen to his fully charged side B, which would be used so infrequently in competitive play that it was essentially a non-existent change. Due to Kirby's extremely low placing on the Smash 4 tier list, it was evident that the global changes in Smash Ultimate would advance him in the meta and inadvertently buff him. This ended up being the case, as reduced landing lag, a common theme for all characters in the 5th Smash game, helped Kirby so much as a fighter that relied on the air to perform his combos. This not only meant that he could put on better aerial pressure with this, such as his back air for ledge trapping and his up air for juggling, he could also perform combos much more easily, as the extended ground time would have less of an effect. The reintroduced directional air dodge mechanic did not help out Kirby as much as other characters, but it helped him be able to recover non-linearly, a significant problem that Kirby had in the past. His edgeguarding, an amazing part of Kirby's kit in the new iteration, since the ability to edgeguard was also increased, was another welcome buff. He could now stall off the side of the stage and drop down with multiple down airs to prevent his opponents from coming back. Since tier lists have not been standardized in Smash Ultimate yet, since the final DLC has not even been out for a year yet, there is no official ranking for Kirby on the tier list, but his spot is pretty much agreed upon by most of the community. Even though he had a major change from Smash 4 that improved his game a lot, other characters' changes just amounted to more and caused him to be ranked at the bottom of the list. At the beginning of Smash Ultimate, Kirby was in contention for the bottom spot on the tier list, but due to top tier playing from Kirby mains in the scene, he jumped up a bit. He's still ranked near the bottom, but he is certainly not in the ranking for the worst character. Currently, Kirby is placed in the middle of low tier due to the same problems he has always had, his short range and lack of speed in the air for combos. In the online era, Kirby's quality and abilities increased, but not enough to make it into anything to write home about. The lag and delay of online made it easier for Kirby to get at a disadvantage, and due to his simple advantage, his combos did not suffer as much as other characters. Back in the offline era again, Kirby kept and keeps improving, and is working his way up in the never-ending quest to regain a similar spot to his time in the first game. The current most prominent Kirby player is Jaja, who emerged in the online era and has stayed at the top Kirby player ever since. He's placements such as a 7th at the Smash World Tour Online Qualifier, and has incredible wins over Send, Chag, and Dabuz. Other than Jaja, the top Kirby players are Jasuichu from Smash 4, who continued with the character. In addition, there are 2 Japanese Kirby players in Ferikuma and Konokururu, with top placings at Umaberas and Kakaribis. Kirby mains made it so that despite his poor placement on the tier list, he was still able to get top tier results. Kirby's time throughout the Smash Bros. Series has been on a sad decline from the standpoint of tier lists, but it was brought up by many mains who pushed the character past his limits in games where he did not have much. In Smash 64, Kirby's extreme hitbox, ability to lock other characters and shields, and recovery brought him into the top of the competitive tier list. In Melee, Kirby dropped like a stone, as his playstyle did not work with the speed of the game, and non-working moves did not help. In Brawl, he did a little more with the slowed down engine, and made some hilariously iconic sets in the competitive scene of the game. Smash 4's Kirby was not great either, but he also had some iconic sets of his time. Finally, Ultimate's Kirby was back in the competitive scene, as his mains are now pulling him up on the tier list to bring him back. Overall, Kirby's short range and slow airspeed for an aerial character did not suit him well, but it shows the power and dedication of the Kirby mains in all 5 Smash games to bring him into the competitive scene despite these horrible flaws. Thank you for watching this video, and please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed it, as well as hit the bell to turn on the notifications.